So now I'll give you the floor. Good morning, everyone. I'm Teresita Di Marco. I am a member of GitHub LATAM, a venture capital investing in agro-tech sector with high impact, all tech startups developing innovation for the agro-food chain. From then on, and articulating the ecosystem, we want to bring to you a conversation and share what we are doing, a very powerful interaction and experience sharing between the Argentine innovation ecosystem, the digitalization of Argentine agro, and the learnings from other ecosystems. So the conversation, and I'm pleased to see we have a packed room, narrowing the learning curve. We have taken two cases, St. Louis and Argentina. And you may ask, why St. Louis? And let's start with a short story. If you were here for the previous talk, you know what the St. Louis system is. If you don't, let me be brief. An entrepreneur started a startup in Rosario in 2015, and he decided to take his startup searching for new markets, expanding his technology to the U.S., where he gets investment by an accelerator fund, one of the first ones, and he sells his home and he moves with his family to explore this new market. When he reaches the U.S. in the city of St. Louis, he learns that the city, the agro production hub developed by the city, had lots in common with what he saw in his homeland, Rosario. So he understands that Argentina could empower herself, shortening the learning curve by using what already was going on in St. Louis. And with his entrepreneur drive, he decides to convince St. Louis institutions on the importance of Rosario, of Argentina, as a production hub, to take them there and see how they could connect the U.S. with Argentina. And so in 2017, a first delegation from St. Louis comes to visit Rosario. 35 people from St. Louis visit Rosario. The first AgTech Week in Rosario. You may have participated in some of the AgTech Weeks. It's a classic already, but that was the beginning. Entrepreneurs who wanted to connect, network, to shorten the learning curve, which was so important for digitalization of agricultural sector. So new ecosystems in Rosario come up with the farmer, with the startups, with the government, private sector, and it expands to other provinces, of course. Córdoba. After that, innovation ecosystems arising throughout the country become connected. And as of then, we have the need to build international bridges, expanding towards Brazil, exploring what was being done in innovation in other LATAM countries. And so an accelerated process began. In the past 5 years, the ecosystem growth of startups with agro-tech solutions, the demand, the pull from producers for these solutions in the market has grown considerably. So the time came when we say, okay, all these ecosystems are connected, opportunities coming back and forth in between countries. So what do we do with all this? Let's give it a framework. Have a project so that this project is has good governance and can develop concrete opportunities for every one of the ecosystems and for every one of the stakeholders. The producer pulling demand of innovation, the startup pushing challenges for solutions to challenges by the producers, and the coming together of supply and demand. In October last year, 35 people from different countries, from 9 countries, Latin American countries, we traveled to St. Louis to learn about the ecosystem, to interact with the members, to speak to farmers and corporations that are part of that ecosystem, to understand how they grew, how they develop as a agro-tech hub, and how we could leverage problems and solutions in common. And so the project Cultivar arises. It started last year with 35 institutions, and now we have 70 institutions from many countries. The project aims to connect opportunities and ecosystems, developing innovation and technology for the agricultural sector to shorten learning curves, to provide opportunities to entrepreneurs with their business by learning from prior experiences by other entrepreneurs, speaking to producers to accelerate their learning, accelerate somehow the growth of their technology. And so today we come down to Aapresid, a member of Cultivar, with the purpose of sharing with you how we work hand in hand with the producer, with the startups, and how we are working in the ecosystems to democratize agricultural digitalization for the region and for Argentina. So this is a wonderful panel. Juan Manuel Baruffaldi from DeepAgro, a startup. So we have here the offer of innovation supply. Javier Bancalari by the group RIA, producer group. So we have here demand of innovation, and Isabel Acevedo, representative of the St. Louis ecosystem. We will set the context so that supply and demand come together, pull together to develop locally and regionally. And so I give you the floor so you can introduce yourselves. You tell us. We can start with you, Juanma. Tell us, what is DeepAgro, how it started, how it grew, where you operate, and what's your development? Thank you so much. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here in this fantastic panel. I'm Juan Manuel. I'm one of the founders of DeepAgro. We are an AI company based on agricultural sector. We started in 2017 doing agro AI. I studied computing science and AI, but I have a farmer family. I didn't study agronomy. I decided to study computing. In 2017, I decided to apply what I learned on AI to the agricultural sector. So DeepAgro is born to generate a sustainable future and more efficient future for agriculture through AI. We do lots of things, and I know it's pretty broad, but it's a selective application of herbicides by the use of AI. It's a camera that you put on the wing on the sprayer, and in real time it reads the morphology of the plant and distinguishes weed from crop. So it applies herbicide only on weeds. So it scans the entire surface but sprays only where needed. The savings are 70 to 80% of herbicide. These are disruptive numbers. As you see, it's a reduction of costs, cost savings, significant, and it reduces environmental impact. Every drop of agrochemical is only applied where the weed is, where nature needs it, and not on the entire surface. We started with commercial applications in 2022. We raised capital with a prototype in 2021, validated with clients, and 2022 is our first commercial year. 3 commercial years in Argentina, 50 producers who are customers to our technology were in Uruguay and Brazil. The challenge in Brazil is huge. Of course, it's our big target to come with this made in Argentina technology to this huge market, a neighboring country with huge challenges but huge opportunities as well. What we do in DeepAgro, that is born in Argentina, if you check out globally what's going on, then you see that there's not much technology that have this degree of advancement with the market pool, with the metrics we have. So this is a huge opportunity to position ourselves globally as a key provider of this type of solution. In the U.S., that huge market that all entrepreneurs aim at, from St. Louis, we're taking the first steps, trying to learn, to know about the producers, to validate the technology developed here, but we want to validate it in the rest of the countries too. Thank you. Can you introduce yourself, Javi, and Grupo RIA, what it is you do and how do you work? Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for the invitation. I'm Javi Busto. I work at an agro company, third generation managing the company. That's my first challenge I faced. We produce in the north of Argentina. It's extensive agriculture that brings about many challenges per se, and I'm a member of the RIA group. It is the Network of Agricultural Innovation, RIA, 14 members. In 2018, we became unrest by technology, and we wanted to see how to work with it. We had 2 stages. The first one, we devoted it to learning about the ecosystem, what the technology was. And we tried a huge amount of technologies. Technology applied for whatever. We just shared experiences, feedback, opinion on it. But we came across a first problem. Imagine you throw all the seeds randomly and you will get something good. In 2022, the second stage, we started focusing on implementation, effective implementation of innovation technology. And from then on, we are developing a methodology, a working methodology to apply technology effectively. What do we do it for? What for? How? When? And how to do it most effectively. Great. Isabel? Can you tell us the St. Louis ecosystem? It was described in the previous panel, but can you tell us how it is formed? What companies, institutions form it? What are your lessons learned on the path to become St. Louis, to be the agro-tech hub, which is the benchmark of many other ecosystems we may come across worldwide? Thank you, Tere. Thank you, Aapresid, for sharing this time to talk about the initiative Cultivar. Thank you, Tere. Without your leadership and this conversation wouldn't be possible. I'm Isabel Acevedo. I'm community manager of the Danforth Center. Let me clarify. I know you will try to identify my accent. To avoid the distraction, I tell you, I was born and raised in Puerto Rico. I work with Tere a lot, so I'm catching up the Argentine accent. And in the end of the panel, I promise I will say che, like a good Argentinian. All right. Danforth Center is in St. Louis, the center of the U.S. We are part of an ecosystem of different stakeholders. Danforth Center is a basic science research institution on plants to feed the world, to restore the environment and improve it. Together with me here in Argentina, there are a couple of representatives from other institutions that are part of our ecosystem. There's a rep from BioSDL working on innovation drive. Just before me, Andy spoke. He's an expert in geospace. He's developing a geospatial system in St. Louis. We have a representative of the World Trade Center focusing on international trade. All of us, we work for a common purpose, the development of the local economy. Now, how did we get here? 2024, here. 25 years ago, the founder of Danforth Center, William Danforth, he was a physician of people, human medicine, but he had a family history linked to the farm. He was very connected to agriculture then. At that time in St. Louis, we had Monsanto, today Bayer, and he saw the opportunity of setting up a basic science research center on agriculture right there to have an innovation pipeline for the industry. That's how Danforth Center started. BioSDL is one of our sister organizations. And in the past 25 years, step by step, we've worked with determination and purpose to add the necessary elements to build this productive ecosystem. Thank you, Isabel. That's so interesting to explore in depth the role of the farmer in an ecosystem, in the adoption of technology. A startup, when providing a solution to a farmer, as the previous panel said, you look for solutions for existing problems. So I asked Javier, you spoke of methodologies that you are developing. Can you tell us what that methodology is and how you fine-tune it? It's not just a matter of randomly throwing out corn in the soil and then see what you do. No, you need to go out and pick the tech solutions you need in the market. It's targeted search. In Grupo RIA, how have you refined your methodology? How are you organized today? And how do you relate to startups? What's the process to adopt new technologies? That is, you map a problem that the sector, the farmers have, and you go out in search of technology. Then you connect to that. Do you have a pilot? What's the process? First of all, it's a dynamic living process. We modify it every day. We have work tables. Our work tables, one is on data, sustainability, machinery, and administration and management. Those are the current active tables.
Esos espacios son espacios de interacción principalmente, donde los referentes de las empresas o especialistas de las empresas, de los miembros, comparten experiencias, qué se les ocurre, ideas, qué le está pasando con determinada tecnología, qué encontró esta otra tecnología que hace tal otra cosa. Y así es un lugar de intercambio y de experiencias de pares, porque de nada sirve que yo me siente con Juaco Ruti, que estaba en el panel anterior, que es especialista GIS, yo no lo entiendo. Entonces, él cuando se siente con otros pares y puede compartir esa experiencia, salen muchas ideas y muy buenas. Eso nos lleva a una segunda instancia, que era cómo trabajamos con las startups y las soluciones tecnológicas. Y eso es lo que nosotros llamamos proyectos. Cuando nosotros detectamos algo que es estratégico y común denominador entre todos los miembros, lo nombramos un proyecto, tratamos de buscar cuál es la tecnología o el que brinda el servicio que más se acerca a esa necesidad que estamos teniendo, y proponemos sentarnos en una mesa de trabajo, tener un ida y vuelta, decirle qué es lo que nosotros estamos viendo en la tecnología, que ellos nos cuenten su modelo de negocio, el agregado de valor que están proponiendo, y lo que hacemos ahí es tratar de planear un plan de trabajo conjunto con ellos, marcar hitos, hablar del modelo de negocio, porque sin la sustentabilidad del negocio de la tecnología a nosotros no nos sirve de nada, y plantear a corto plazo hitos cortos de éxitos rápido para que nosotros lo podamos implementar, y éxitos a largo plazo para darle sustentabilidad.
Now, and we name projects and data analysis. We worked for a whole year. We put together a plan, and then we put together another sustainability plan for carbon. It's more about gaining knowledge, right, before moving forward. And when it comes to DeepAgro, we worked a lot with them to try to learn about their business model. And then we tried to set goals that were attainable for both sides, achievable for both and also profitable for both. And also we try to measure that as well. That's super interesting. So this is one example of how we work collaboratively in the agribusiness to reduce learning curves. And this is Aapresid, Nesta, RIA. We have many, many associations and holdings that are part of these groups simultaneously, because each group adds value from a different perspective. Let me interrupt you. That is exactly the case. This is not something we invented. We couldn't find space to talk about technology exclusively, and this is how RIA Group was born. But we basically copied the methodology of Aapresid, and the idea was to accelerate the learning curve with that. So this is not something that is typical of Argentina, but rather the agricultural sector in general. They need to try and share knowledge. And my question now goes to Isabel. How can you describe the agricultural producer in St. Louis? Maybe as producers, they want to get engaged in alliances. What are the different organizations that bring together agricultural producers? And how does the ecosystem integrate producers through specific initiatives that will bring innovative solutions to them? As I said before, St. Louis is located at the center of the U.S. 800 kilometers away from St. Louis, we find 50% of the agricultural lands, very similar to Rosario. This is why we are sister cities. And 80% of corn and soybean of the U.S. is produced in this area. So that provides a geographical advantage. And in addition to that, many offices of the different associations of agricultural producers are based in St. Louis. So we have access to the headquarters of all the associations. I knew this was going to happen to me. United Soybean Board, American Soybean Association, American Corn Grower Associations, they are all based in St. Louis. But there are organizations such as BioSDL that are part of the ecosystem that are working to connect organizations and producers in the region to help them implement solutions that may increase the productivity of their plots or become more sustainable, and they can also reduce part of the risk that producers face. Producers need to pick and choose from a lot of different technological solutions, and they help eliminate the noise and advise them on the better alternatives. One of these programs is the REACH program, and this is how we got connected with DeepAgro. And thanks to our connection with the Cultivar initiative, we're holding this conversation here today. It was like the perfect storm or perfect collisions. Super interesting. Isabel was mentioning BioSDL that brings together organizations and supports them. What would be the counterpart in Argentina of that organization that is working to support all the different institutions to help agricultural producers in the challenges posed by adopting new technology? So let's see if you can help me answer this. Is there an association that can be similar to BioSDL in St. Louis that brings together all the different associations of producers, or maybe this is an empty space that may eventually get consolidated? I was not expecting this question. Well, it is quite of an unfilled vacancy, but I think all of us should occupy that role from our own positions. We need to understand basically what is it that we need and how we can achieve it. So that vacancy needs to be filled by all of us. So we could have a Congress in the future with all the different associations and bring them to the table, and also bring cross-cutting value to all the organizations that are working on innovation, technology, and development. Well, this is food for thought. Juanma, let me get back to you. The vision from a startup standpoint. We have been talking about producers and how they engage in networking to reduce learning curves. But the ecosystem also includes SMEs, startups like yours, that need to get to the producer to offer new technologies. You also have to face a lot of challenges, but also immense opportunities. The specific question is, how is it like to contact a producer as a startup? How do you start working for Grupo RIA, for example? What was your experience, your lessons learned after working with a group of producers of the size of Grupo RIA? And after that, how did you became international? How did you get to St. Louis, and how do you get to a producer in St. Louis, which is quite a challenge due to the cultural exchange? Well, to begin with, all entrepreneurs and all startups are constantly trying to accelerate, which is a widely used term in our ecosystem. And sometimes you can accelerate by learning, and in order to learn, you need to be close to the producer. In our journey, and based on our experience, getting to work with RIA Group, and it's essential. Groups that are constantly trying to implement new technology and to innovate, that helps us accelerate a lot. The main learnings that we had by working with Néstor, CREA, Grupo RIA, in the case of Grupo RIA, for example, because we do work with other organizations, but they were very, very useful in terms of orderly work, specific objectives, how they owned the project within the group as well. That facilitated major acceleration, which is something that we needed back then as a startup company. And sometimes, you know how startups are restless. We keep trying to look for alternatives to increase our reach, get to more places with our solution, tapping into new markets, Brazil, the US. The case of St. Louis. For us, it was really interesting. It was an initiative that allowed us to tour the U.S., talk to different producers, and understand what was the gap between a U.S. producer and an Argentine producer. And after a 10-day trip where we drove 5,000 kilometers, a pickup truck, we got together with Bio, CDL, and Chad, who opened up doors for us, and we started bringing innovation to the U.S. We got in contact with producers. This was a road trip, but actually some were paved roads, but we went to visit one farmer after another to see how they work, and they opened the doors to their farms to explain us how they worked. That was quite disruptive for us. We had to change our mindsets, and we were open-minded about trying new things and developing new markets, of course. But of course, we cannot make it on our own. And this applies to all startups. It's critical to have networking that will allow us to learn, and the key word here is make mistakes as fast as possible so that we can capitalize that as learning, and that is, at the end of the day, the acceleration that we need to be able to have the product that we have today, the customers that we have today, the capacity to tap into new markets at a very high speed, and also being able to leverage an opportunity and position ourselves against other competing companies that we couldn't have made on our own. To add to what he was saying about St. Louis, when DeepAgro knocked on our door, the fact that they were already connected to Grupo RIA and that they already field tested their technology, so when they came to us with that information and we could connect directly with Grupo RIA to understand how the testings were developed, what were their key learnings, what they would have done differently before doing our field tests. That knowledge is very valuable, in particular for innovation ecosystems that move so fast. So thanks to the trust that was built, the time that we spent working together, we were able to learn about each other's work. Back in 2017, there was a conference held by St. Louis in Rosario, and we attended that conference, and St. Louis was already somewhere in our minds, set there. It bore fruit years later, but I think that the seed was out back then in Rosario. I wanted to add something to that. In the case of DeepAgro, it was very clear that this was a technology that clearly established what it was going to solve. There was huge market potential. So we said, okay, let's solve today the problem that we have today, and let's talk about potential in the future. That is super interesting to see specific examples of how we can reduce the learning curve and how we can work with other stakeholders in the ecosystem and to have information flow from one market to another. And let me add this, let me piggyback on that. It was critical for us to find Argentine startups in St. Louis, right? That was like peer-to-peer support. We came closer, okay, well, I'm taking the leap, but I have others to support me. If you scan the QR code that you will see on the screen, you can send us any questions you may have, and we will take a couple of minutes to answer them. So you can ask any questions. Let me go back to the perspective of the agricultural producer. Javi, based on your personal experience as agricultural producer and also the experience of the group you work with, what technologies are you looking at now? Do you have any success cases or failure cases to share in terms of pilot projects involving technology? Do you see any bottlenecks for technological adoption? How have you unblocked those bottlenecks to enable technology adoption or digitization? Well, this is a constant challenge. We continually make mistakes. There are a lot of failures. I'm not going to delve into them, but they do leave some learnings from them as well. We have many challenges that we still need to work on. In all the different spheres for agricultural companies. Personally speaking, I'm concerned about being able to map all technologies available for the ag business, but also taking into account the different processes of the agricultural industry. Some of those processes, they share them, right? So we need to understand the different processes, what is it that, or to be able to work in an orderly way, right? And not in a chaotic way. I don't want to interrupt you. Do you have any specific cases, success cases or failure cases of implementations? Why did it work? Why didn't it work? And how did you try to find solutions? Well, implementations, I mentioned a couple of success cases, but I can add to that is the need to create knowledge. Some technologies, we didn't implement them because we didn't know how to. In the case of Grupo RIA, for example, we focused on the GIS industry. Other companies were not focused on that. And each member has a different GIS representative. Each technology becomes more and more specialized, and that generates an internal knowledge culture that sometimes you need to look for it outside your organization. So this is all about agricultural producers that are looking for solutions. They want to start innovation. How hard is it to become an agricultural technology that is a technology adopter and to do it successfully? How important are these networks that provide support? Because not only for agricultural producers. Identifying what is it that you don't know might be the key to unlock your potential, right? Discovering that there's a solution for something I didn't even know that was a problem. This may unlock major challenges that you may have as producers. Well, you can develop that internally if you can, but if you identify what is it that you don't know, there are many, many professionals that can provide you with advice. Just identifying that gap is the first step. Going back to what Juanma was saying, his experience of going on a road trip, 5,000 kilometers, and knocking doors, and going to knock on the door at St. Louis because he heard them mentioned at a Congress in Rosario. We have many startups present here who are wondering, can my technology escalate to the U.S. through St. Louis as an gate which facilitates soft landing for startups? What type of projects or startups do you look for, and on what stages? Well, sometimes we think about soft landing as requiring the physical presence in the ecosystem where you want to land. What we discovered in St. Louis is this is not a soft landing, but rather a soft takeoff. You talked about short-term milestones. Well, for startups, we need to define those milestones for the takeoff process. And in St. Louis, we came to realize that we can support entrepreneurs, Latin American entrepreneurs and others, to access the ecosystem capacity with world-renowned researchers and scientists. We have facilities that they can access to without being physically present in the U.S. Maybe an expert can be hired to run a short experiment to bring your technology to the next level. Or connecting to BioSDL, they have offices in the they have no offices in St. Louis, but they are directly connected to the ecosystem. So we hope at some time they will permanently land in St. Louis. That would be our ideal goal. But this is a step-by-step process. Our recommendation is for you to design your plan and come to us as early as you can in this process so that we can guide you to understand what would be the best journey. I can mention 5 Latin American startups, and all of them had different journeys. They are still part of the ecosystem, but only 2 of them are permanently based in St. Louis. But this is not a road that leads to St. Louis only. We are also trying to make of this a two-way channel or street. So through organizations such as Grupo Rías, we believe that we have the possibility of going the opposite direction, right? Bringing technology of startups from Missouri to Argentina or to Latin America. Well, now I'm thinking about this change of paradigm, promoting talent retention in the different localities. Yesterday, we talked about the number of agricultural producers that are highly specialized and very young. It is very important to retain that talent and also to train new talent. I was holding a conversation yesterday with somebody from a company that said to me, I want to run pilot projects. I'm an agricultural producer, but I don't have an internal team to do that. And there was a colleague from one of the main universities of Mexico, the Monterrey Institute, and we said, okay, we need to put together a program with universities so that agricultural engineers can do field tests through major companies so that they can understand how to go from the theory to practice, right, from the academia to the field, with companies that are looking for teams that are already formed or that can form very quickly. There are many opportunities, and knowledge transfer among ecosystems is highly valuable. We are running out of time. We could continue talking about the opportunity to reduce learning curves, but the idea of this panel was to bring a concern or an issue and for you to look for answers to your questions in networks and to gain awareness that producers need to come closer to other groups that are a bit more advanced in terms of technological adoption, but only because they were more interested or they invested more time into it. There are networks, ecosystems, and many professionals that are constantly working in order to reduce your learning curves and to accelerate the digitization of the agribusiness, not only in Argentina, but only in Latin America and the rest of the world.